Recently, I saw a comment on a video asking how, as a backpacker, they can be more efficient in getting going in the morning when on trail and take less time fussing with all of the gear and everything. It got me thinking, what are some key things that highly experienced backpackers do that make them more efficient and are just good habits on trail? And that's the goal today, is to define simple, good habits that experienced backpackers do out on the trail that provide an overall better experience, as well as just makes things more efficient in packing and your time out on the trail. Now, it's important to note that being an efficient backpacker and having these good habits does not mean that you are the fastest hiker out there or doing things in a really quick manner. It simply means you've got systems in place and organization methods that make it possible for you to actually enjoy yourself more out there on the trail and enjoy being in the environment, because you're not fussing with a bunch of stuff that distracts you from being able to enjoy yourself. Now, before you even get out on the trail, there's things you can do at home that are really good habits to get into that make it possible for you to be more organized and just more efficient in being able to pack really well so that you are nice and prepared for your trip. And that comes down to just having a system in place for you to pack your gear effectively. And what I like to do is, when I am getting ready to go on a trip, I will take all of the gear, lay it out on the floor, and I will kind of organize it into my checklist of categories, whether that's big three, cooking gear, clothing, etc. and such, and make it possible for me to really see everything that I'm taking with me on my trip. When I do that, I'm able to look at each piece of gear individually and decide, do I really need this? What is the absolute necessary purpose of that item? And when I put it in my pack, then I know that it is exactly what I need for that trip. So asking those questions of, is this necessary? Is it redundant? Is it a necessary redundancy? Or is it just something that's extra that I'm like kind of packing my fears with? Or is it something that I'm like, I'm bringing this because I want to, it's a luxury item, or I just absolutely don't need it? And going through that process at home first will make it possible for you to be more organized and more efficient on the trail, because you know exactly what you've got in your pack. You are not overpacking with too much gear, and you are just more organized of exactly what you know you need for the trip that you're going on. Now, the next good habit to get into after you have laid everything out and you've gone through that gear is to create repeatable packing methods for packing all of the gear into your pack, but also how you might organize your smaller gear items into some organization bags so that that is repeatable and everything is ready to go in that way as well. So if that's your hygiene kit or your first aid kit or other things that you put together like electronics, that make it possible for you to be repeatable in ensuring that those are ready to go. But from the larger standpoint of how everything fits into your backpack, creating a system of how you pack your backpack every single time you go out will make a huge difference in that experience and being more efficient. Now, when you go out on a lot of trips, you start to develop that process over time. But I think if you start to really focus on that from the beginning and say, this is my pack, this is all of my gear, and this is how I want to pack it every single time, because that's how it fits into the pack the most effective way. It saves the most space. It's how it balances the best in my pack and such. I think that's so important to being able to enjoy yourself more and be more comfortable and enjoy carrying that weight on your back, instead of just like kind of willy-nilly throwing everything into the pack and hoping that it works out from a space standpoint. So developing that system ahead of time and really refining it to make it the same every single time you pack your pack will make it so that you enjoy carrying that gear on your back a lot more. So now that you're out on your trip, the next good habit to develop is a process of what you're going to do as soon as you get into your campsite. And the benefit of this is for the fact that if it is raining, then you have something in place in your mind of how you're going to approach things, or you get into your campsite late and it's dark. This will make it possible for you to be more efficient in your unpacking process. What I mean by this is, when I get to camp, I'm going to do this checklist of specific things that make it possible for me to have everything in order and make it so that I'm able to be comfortable and dry and warm and safe when I get to camp. When I get to camp, what I like to do is, first thing, set up my tent. I will get my shelter in place and make sure that it is ready to go so that if wind or rain or snow or anything comes in, I'm not scrambling because I've got gear yard sailed across the area waiting to have a place to go and I don't have my tent set up. So I will always set up my tent first, and then I put my sleeping system or my sleeping gear together. So I get my down sleeping bag or my quilt out and I get some air in it, loft it up, and let that really loft up as much as it possibly can. And I get my pillow and my sleeping pad inflated as well. By doing that, I'm ensuring that I'm going to be as warm and comfortable as possible when I get into bed, as opposed to not doing those things and then waiting until I'm ready to go to bed, then inflating my pad, then putting my pillow together, and then pulling my sleeping bag out of its compression bag. Because while your sleeping bag or quilt has been compressed, the issue is it's not able to loft. And so as soon as I pull that out right at bedtime, then the chances of me sleeping cold are going to be a lot higher than if I pulled it out earlier and let my bag loft up and such while I'm sitting around camp and eating dinner and hanging out until I am ready to go to bed. The other thing that I really like to do is organize my gear inside of my tent. Now, I've had people kind of make fun of me or tease me for how OCD I kind of am with the approach to this, but I am very specific in where I place things inside of my tent because it makes for really easy access, or even from an emergency standpoint. Let me explain. So after I get my sleep system and such all set up, I have specific gear items that I place at the head end of my tent so that I know exactly where they are in case of an emergency, or I just need quick access to them. And that would be like my hygiene kit, my poop kit. If I need to use the bathroom quickly and go dig a cat hole, then I'm not fussing with where is that kit inside of my tent. Is it still inside of my backpack? Is it at the foot end of the tent? Is it at the top end of the tent? I put it at the head end of the tent and have it in this same bag every single time so that I can open the door, reach in, grab it without having to look for it. And even more importantly, I think, is your first aid kit. If something should happen to you or somebody in your group, you want to be able to find your first aid kit quickly. So this also always goes in the same spot in my tent at the head end and really easy access. So I could say to somebody if I needed, hey, I need my first aid kit quickly. It's in my tent by my pillow. Boom. That's easy instruction to tell somebody that's exactly where my first aid kit is. But then additionally, I'll just put all of the other pieces of gear like at the foot end, or just organize it specifically so that it is efficient and just organized and a little bit OCD. But it does make a difference, I think, overall in the experience so that you're not losing gear, you're not breaking things, and it's just a way to, for me, enjoy myself more by knowing that I've got a spot for everything inside of the tent. Now, the last good habit we'll talk about today, I think, is one of the most important, and it's the basis of where this whole idea came from, of that comment I saw on that video of wanting to be more efficient in getting packed up and moving in the morning when you're out on your trip. And this is important specifically if you are doing a loop hike or a through hike, or just moving from the camp that you spent the night in and packing up and moving to a different spot. An example of what I like to do with my process is when I wake up in the morning, I'll just kind of wake up casually and slowly start moving around, but I will make a very conscious decision that, okay, it's time to get up. So I'll change out of my sleeping clothes and get into my hiking clothes for the day, put my down jacket on or whatever. But then before I get out of my tent, I will deflate my sleeping pad, just let that air blow out, and then I will pack my sleeping bag into its compression bag. I will also pack up my sleeping pad and my pillow and have my bed totally ready to go inside of my pack. Now, there might be a little caveat to this in the sense that there was condensation and gear is wet and such, and I might need to adjust things a little bit there, but at least in a dry situation, that is my approach. And then I'll get out of the tent, I'll use the bathroom and do that whole thing, and then I'll work on breakfast. And if I am using or eating a breakfast meal that requires some time to rehydrate, like a freeze-dried breakfast meal, then I'll use that time that I am waiting for my meal to rehydrate to go do more packing up things. And what I like to do is similar to what I do at home before my trip. I will take all of my gear out, make sure it's all put away correctly, and then I will lay everything out outside of my tent as long as it's not raining and it's not super wet, but I'll lay everything out outside of my tent in an organized manner, ready to go in my pack. And then if I've still got time at that point, I will start to take down my tent or my shelter and pack it up, or at least get that process started. So then after I've had my breakfast, that is go time to get everything organized and ready to go in my pack. Now, something important to note about this process is it might be a cold morning and you've got your insulation jacket on and you're not ready to maybe stand around for 10-15 minutes while you're waiting for somebody else or whatever to finish their packing. And so I will typically wait to take my insulation layer off until I'm absolutely ready to start walking. But because I have that process in place of all of my gear is organized, it's laid out, it's ready to go in that process that I have developed, then I can be really quick in my packing instead of like shoving everything in there, hoping that it fits, and then I didn't do it the same as last time, and so now things are not fitting right. I have to pull all the gear out. Like, I'm just ready to go. And so when it is time to start hiking, I can unzip the jacket, pull it off, place it where I want it in the pack, put everything else in there, and have a quick and efficient packed pack ready to go. And that's essentially how I'm more efficient in my packing and more organized in getting going in the morning. Processes and systems in place make a huge difference. Now, do keep in mind, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, being efficient and organized is not about how fast you can be and how quickly you can move down the trail and that you are going to be missing things because you're going so fast. Like, that's not the point. It's being organized and efficient so that you're not fussing with a bunch of stuff and thinking that you've forgot something, or it's not in the same place every single time, or you're just not paying attention to stuff, and it makes it so that you're focused on that as opposed to enjoying being in the moment in a beautiful place. So I'd be curious to know from you guys down in the comments, what other kinds of habits or good things that you do that help you be more efficient in your packing, in your time on trail, and out on your backpacking trips. I would love to have a conversation about this. I think it's really interesting topic to discuss, so let's talk about it down below. But thank you so much for watching today, guys. If you are not subscribed, you know what to do. Hope you have an awesome day. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.